Can you guys hear me? Great, fabulous. Before we start, actually, I want to say thank you to Pooja and Manu. They have been fabulous over the last 2 days. So let's hear it for them. Okay, by the way of introduction, of course, Manu has already done. I'm Rakshit, and it just gives me an honor and privilege to stand on the same stage as Hemant, talking about storytelling with numbers. While a lot has been spoken and seen over the last 2 days with respect to telling stories with numbers. On one hand, yesterday we had Manish and Vivek talking about the importance of storytelling. On the other hand, we had all the presenters coming onto the stage and telling their stories with numbers. Isn't that a coincidence, guys? So also, let me tell you, if we go back, storytelling has always been part of our lives, both professionally and personally. And numbers alone cannot tell the story, and that's why storytelling becomes the voice of those numbers. Yeah. And we have come a long way in telling our stories, from just showing numbers on the slides with Excel sheets and data, to humanizing them through infographic, images, and designs, and also partnering business growth. So that's how far we have come. Keeping that in mind, the art of telling compelling stories. Here we have Hemant, who have written a fabulous book, India in Numbers, which kind of covers the story of India with factoids, with a stem of giving voice to those numbers. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to pass on the baton to Hemant to talk a little bit about the book that he has written today.
Hey, thanks Rakshit. Thanks everyone. First, a big thank you to MRSI for inviting me here. Really appreciate it. As Rakshit said, I think I spent 3 decades trying to create stories. And I think over the years, telling story, rather than showing how rigorous the data is and showing, 10 data points on a slide, we've come to a stage where we want 1 data point, and we want that to either narrate the story or take it forward. And that's really what I tried to do. I just tried to pull together disparate, diverse sets of data, which will all bring it together and give us some insight about what the country is, what the Indians are all about. So that's really the background to the book. Yep, Rakshit, does that?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Hemant. But I have a few questions already, and please do ask any questions that you have by scanning the barcode that you see on the back on the panels there. But there are already few questions because I've already had a chance to look at the book that you've written, in fact, to go through it as well. Had some curious questions, some not. So can you tell us about the process? What was the genesis of this book, and how did you thought through it? I think I've asked this question to you already when we had a chat. I think it's going to be important for all of us sitting over here to really know where did this stem from?
Oh, okay. So it's a funny story. So talking to a dear friend, when I left my previous job, so he said, "Haan, so abhi tu kya karega?" So sure, you'll sit and write one book about market research, how to do sampling, and koi nahi padega tere ilawa. And that really started me off, and got the josh. And I said, his name is Shivjit. I said, Shivjit, I'll show you what I can do. I had no idea what the hell I was getting into. But that was really the genesis of trying to do something. What I then did was I thought through all those clients who asked me extremely uncomfortable questions. And the answer was, let me go back and see whether हमारे पास data है, और ये तो मिलता ही नहीं है, ये India है. Coming from a company where we had loads and loads of consumer data, syndicated consumer data, it used to be really embarrassing to tell a client, we don't have this data. And the idea was, if you are in Kantar and Kantar didn't have the data, nobody has it, right? So that's how really I started putting down all those questions, spent a couple of weeks, ended up with something close to about 1,000 questions, which the client had asked and I had no answer. So that really set me off on the journey of, looking for various kinds of data which is available, uh, compiling them, looking at how robust the data is. So most of the times I spent on looking at published data, government data sources, respected journals, etc., and started compiling. So that's how really I had a laundry list of many factoids, which then became difficult to edit.
Great, fabulous. I think from Koi Nahi Padega, to I'm sure there are few of you who have padha hai. So yeah, that's a long story already. And then, what were the challenges that you faced in this whole process of writing the book?
Oh, there are plenty. First is being a good researcher. Every data point is very important and has to be shared with the client, right? That's the training that I had got. So to give up and shortlist and edit was really a nightmare. But I was fortunate. I had a couple of friends who kind of were being kind to me, who became, kind of the edit committee, or really putting me in my place and saying, oh, this doesn't make sense, or this is all rubbish, and, help me shortlist. So that's one. That's your stage one. So we started with 3,500, came down to, with much reluctance, to 750, then, to bring it down to what is there in the book. So that was one challenge, giving up what you think is very dear to you, and putting it in perspective for what's relevant to the audience, which in this case is anyone who reads the book, right? So that was one. And then there are challenges of being a self-publishing. It's a book that I published myself, so you learn a lot, which you've never done as a market researcher.
Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you so much, Hemant, for that. Quickly, moving on to the next question. When I was reading through it, I could figure that it's a fun and immersive, book in its own. How did you, came up with an idea that we need to have this kind of infographics, and this should be the color palette, and this is how it should be shown. This is the font that I should be using, and were you also aware what could be the acceptance level of this book? When I kind of publish it. So, you can break this down into two parts, but yeah.
Yeah, so, the color palette was decided when it was all about India, right? It's India in numbers. And so we agreed upon that. I think thereafter, we wanted, structuring the data points that we had was a challenge. And that's where we said, okay, this is 75th year of Indian independence. Why don't we combine and put together, numbers from 1 to 75 and create 75 different chapters. And then it needed a design language, which is where I was very fortunate to have a designer who excelled at it. We wanted to make it very easy on the eye, so very little text, just the key essence of the number. Kept on remembering that our attention spans are very low now, less than a goldfish, so you don't want to spend, write too much. Again, very difficult for a researcher who likes writing both us, but that's where the editors do their job and put us in place. So yeah, the color palette was about India, and to make it more visually appealing, we said we'll use Indian motifs, but we will use it in a more contemporary format.
Great. Fabulous. And also, can you share some facts and insights that you've mentioned in the book? I mean, maybe snippets out of the entire book that you've written, in terms of what took you by surprise. In some of the facts that you have mentioned, or the numbers that you have mentioned, would otherwise generally be, have a different perception altogether.
Actually, it's quite, what took me, came as a pleasant surprise, are some of the aspects that we believe in, it's not happening. So I'll give you an example. On one hand, we talk about women emancipation and all the struggle that they're going through, and then you suddenly see how digital is making a difference to them. So 30% of online gamers are women, for instance. If you look at the households, the first adopter of UPI is a woman. right? There's a kind of very different insights that, for me, it was great learning. That's one side of the story. The other side, if we look at, say, we talk of Gen Z, we heard a lot in the morning today. Who would have thought that we were always religious as a society, but who knew that we are so more religious? And that too, demonstrably religious. When I use the word demonstrably religious, so one of the things that I survey that I came across, and which is a trend survey, a timeline over 12 years, every passing year, we are going more and more often to the temples or any places of worship, depending on our religion. So this is, these are things, to me, I always thought that religion was, the youth were not wanting to overtly show their religious beliefs. But now it's out there. They're going out, they're showing. So there's some of those things which are quite, very different from what one would have expected or one believed that one knew about.
Yeah. Do you want to also quickly talk about the relevance of 75th independence that we celebrated? What was the relevance with this book that you were trying to draw?
Yeah, so the idea is everyone knows, if you ask anyone outside, anyone in business, marketing, or, people outside the country, we all know we are a complex country, large country, fast developing economy. The whole purpose for me was that this is the time, let's showcase how different we are. What we are today is not really what we believe we are. We have changed a lot. And the idea was to anchor that and say that 75th anniversary is the new India. This is the new Indian that we're looking at.
Fabulous. Before we end this, I think it is going to be absolutely important because I spoke about the importance of storytelling and we've been talking about it since yesterday and we've seen so many stories being presented since yesterday. What's your take on it? What do you think? Why is it storytelling important for all of us sitting in the room today? While, of course, you being a data buff all your life and we all speak about data, we all speak about numbers. Why do you think storytelling becomes absolutely important?
As I said, that's the best way of actually communicating the right message. If there's one thing from a study that I want to talk about, let me only show that or talk about that because that's really what stays back. If I have a 300 slide presentation, which we don't have, and all of us actually struggle, at least when I used to be in the agency, if the client said, now you condense it, make it into a 30 slide or make it into, you could do that till 30. But the minute you said, I want the entire story in 2 slides, and that's really the tricky part. But the most interesting bit is that those 2 slides actually help you understand the entire picture. So if you want to communicate, deliver the message, the right message with the right points, nothing better than doing a story. Because we all remember, as human beings, we're used to stories, right? Right from childhood to even today, our gossip or what do we do, it's all about stories. So it's natural.
Nice. Are we expecting another book from you?
No, not at the moment. I'm going to spare you guys.
Right, with that in mind, I want to thank you, Hemant, for your time. And it was such a privilege and a pleasure to really share this stage with you. Thank you once again, and a huge round of applause for him.
Thank you, Rakshit.
I have questions.
Sorry? Oh, we have questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I was expecting questions, but I didn't get them on time. So not my mistake. All right, there's one here. Many of these numbers are dynamic, would change soon or later. When do you plan to launch the second edition of the book?
So it's not going to be a book. What's happening is there is a website in the works. It's called indiannumbers.com. Yes, the numbers are dynamic, and we will be updating it on the website. Yep.
The second question, and I'm going to read it as it is. Does using the domain knowledge do justice to actual data?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, there's no point, if you don't have the context, you're not going to be able to do justice to the data or to the client. So domain knowledge is critical, it's easy to get, but it helps you contextualize whatever story that you want to tell.
I think we are done with the questions.
Yes.
But I think you can clap again. So huge round of applause for Hemant.
Thank you, thank you.